for watching Questdale TV. I am the Wendigo that ate his face.
Frickin' snacks. Did you see? Questdale TV got an uwu. Uwu? Uwu? Watch. Oh man, that thing is nuts.
Bye, guys. Oh, fuck. Yeah!
Oh my god!
God, we should get experience for all of them.
Well, I think we will. All these types of persuasions have always given us about the same.
Alright, we won!
Just stop moving for a second. No. There you go. Ooh, you're spooky. Spoopy. Okay. Now there's a serious business right there. Pirate freebooter. A bang bang. Oh! I just skull cooked him. Okay. It's great to look at the ship. Now behind that hab goes this engine right here, this Ammon 3 engine. And that's the next level of the ship. The next level is another Ammon 3 engine, which will stack right up there, and then the Deimos cowling, 4 cowling. Okay? And then I just put the tail on. That is the Deimos tail A. Oh, well, there you go.
You get hit by the flyers. They're the only things that can, like, start you. But just double tap space, and then hit, and then breathe. Like, if you're hitting shit,
It's about done, guys.
it is about done.
Let's not.
Let's go.
Oh, land and die.
Let's go.
Yep.
And the lesson, Questdale TV, is don't wear a green shirt.
Thank you for watching Questdale TV. I am the Wendigo that ate his face.
Frickin' snacks. Did you see? Questdale TV got an uwu. Uwu? Uwu? Watch. Oh man, that thing is nuts.
Bye, guys. Oh, fuck. Yeah!
Oh my god!
God, we should get experience for all of them.
Well, I think we will. All these types of persuasions have always given us about the same.
Alright, we won!
Just stop moving for a second. No. There you go. Ooh, you're spooky. Spoopy. Okay. Now there's a serious business right there. Pirate freebooter. A bang bang. Oh! I just skull cooked him. Okay, to create the look of the ship. Now behind that hab goes this engine right here, this Ammon 3 engine, and that's the next level of the ship. The next level is another Ammon 3 engine, which will stack right up there, and then the Deimos cowling, forward cowling. Okay, and then I just put the tail on. That is the Deimos tail A.
Welcome back to Quest ALTV. All the love to you paladins, lords and ladies. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Welcome to Quest TV. I am here to do some tabletop game design with you, and maybe about, 30 minutes in, if some people want to play the game and they're willing to, jump through a couple hoops, you can be a player. Right here today on Quest TV, Legion Chaos Realms tabletop game design. Boop, 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 boop. Beep, bop, boop. I'm a robot. Guys, I'm a robot. Guys. Impressive. Yeah. Okay, well, first thing that we have to do, evidently...
Game over, man. It's game over.
Game over, man. Game over. The first thing that we have to do is we have to check out this leaderboard over here. Because we got to add somebody to it now because Thantic smushed you guys this morning. So let's get in here and put one for Thantic. Yeah. It was like I was looking at a real robot. What's happening right now? Is it because No. Oh, Thantic redeemed, put your faith in the light. I was wrong, guys. You know what? I mean, I can always check it because now I have my stream keeping track of it. Maybe Thantic doesn't want to win a prize. Maybe that's what it is. I think Thantic doesn't want to win a prize. Give it to him. He was first. Okay. I mean, I get it, but... You know what? Only because it's you, Kazawana. Only because it's you. You got to listen to an insurance commercial just now? Sorry about that. I mean, when I say sorry about that, what I want to say is keep in mind that's what, makes Twitch free and, such a wonderful... It's just like... Now, some of you guys are pretty young, but I'm fairly certain that everybody here has watched some television that had commercials. So that's what we're doing. And now that's not why I do it as a streamer, but that's why a lot of streamers do it. Because they going to get paid. They going to get paid that money. Right? Make it rain up in here. We're going to play some Legion Chaos Realms today, hopefully. It was... All right, Great Goldor, thanks for coming in. Nobody ever pays me in gum. All right. Yeah, I don't, man, I don't know. We're going to have a good time no matter what we do, but I have a couple of things that might work. So also I didn't post over here. How's everybody going to know I'm on? I'm going to go everywhere and post everywhere. Well, anyhow, let's see what we got going on here. So my idea, guys, is that, so I've got 2 randomizers for the season, and I have a randomizer for the pillage cards that you might get if you play the game. So, and then we have some space to put these things out here. And I thought what I would do is post some of these things to the Discord. How is this working now? It's not working. This is what we want right here. All right. So one of the hoops that a player would have to jump through is they would just have to join my Discord so that they could see some of these cards up close. So if you're playing on mobile, it might not work as well. Although I'm happy if you want to interact in chat to tell you this and that and the other thing and whatever. You asked me a question as like what powers your what different abilities your leaders have and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be tough. But I'm willing to try and make it work for you guys. So let's open a new one. And we'll pull this over here and let's look at, why does it look like I'm not doing anything? I got to refresh that screen because who knows why. So if I go in here and we're going to look at, yeah, we need our booklet rules. So I wonder if I could actually post this to Discord. Wouldn't that be something? So you guys could see all of this? I don't know. Would that be giving too much away? Woo-hoo-hoo. It might be. But we're going to start with this, and we're going to do some basic game setup here. I have already. We're going to have maybe up to 3 players, so they should expect to have 16 realms, or 6 realms and 18 legions. So that means we could just start the game with 3 legions in each of the realms. And that might be convenient for me. Is that 6? That's 6. So good. All right. Well, I guess sometimes I'm just thinking like I have to watch myself on several screens and try and keep track of your happy little chat too. But these are going to be the markers for the players. For the legions that are on each realm. Yeah, this is kind of what you guys wanted to do. Well, some people said that they wanted to, but we're only 16 minutes in, so. So we started a new let's go to the Legion 2025 here. Okay, so I do need their ancestral homes, though. And we have Troll and Triton and Elves today. That's what we've got. So we're going to want to insert the pictures for those ancestral homes, and that is a 20, 22, and 27. So we'll insert those over here so that we have them for placement. And I think I want to go into my Discord and then see if we can move this over. So I can maybe see both of these things. I'm not really seeing my chat right now, but. Okay. That'll maybe be better. So under Legion Game Design, in my Discord, let's go ahead and pop up the Discord information. Questale, thank you. Okay, so we're going to see if we can post these things in here so that the players could look at them more close up if they wanted to. We will also need action points for these guys. So let's take this and give it a white line of, I don't know, 2 points. Maybe we'll make it black. Point 6.6. Lock the aspect ratio. Okay. Now we'll take and make a set of these for each player.
Put your faith in the light.
Thanks for coming in, Wix Mini. How are you doing today? How are you doing? Just same old, same old. I wish that I was playing Scorched Earth, and you know, if I guess if at about an hour we don't start playing Legion Chaos Realms, then maybe I will. You're about to go hard on Arc? That's cool. That's cool. All right. So now let's see if we can host some of these things. Yeah, from the MPC run. And I don't know if I can just drag these in here. It might be nice, right? So we'll drag in Deathmark, and if we can do all three of them, that'd be great. Now let's see how that comes up when somebody pulls it up. That's cool. Okay, so you can get bigger versions of those cards. That's nice. And then let's have the Elves, Trolls, and Triton. They're leader cards so that people can use those if they need to. That's cool. Nothing can stop you unless you get jumped by a death worm and a gang of mantis in the middle of the desert or something. It can be dangerous, that's for sure. It can be dangerous out there. But let's see, I don't think... we don't have any triads on this map. At all, triad would be where three of these lands are the same terrain type and they come together in a triangle like this. But we don't have any on here. Oh, I know one thing that we have to do. We have to put 3 Ghost Legions on Dominatus. So, cool. All right. So this is how the game would set up right here. The board is off to the right here. And then the players would have their leader cards and their ancestral homes and all of the legions that they're going to place on the board. And we kind of went through a simulation of this the other day. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. This has been a little bit of working. But we have this and this. Yeah, this and this. So, and these dice actually roll. Look at that. Watch what you're gonna run around. Cool. So we can have combat, and then compare those things top down. Whatever we have to do. And maybe I'll take that. I'll take that URL and post it in here. In case I need it later. Okay. So let's go through the rules, and then let's see. We'll see who joins us, and we've got about half an hour to start the game if we want to. And if we don't, then we'll work on it some more off stream, and I'll go chase dinosaurs. Maybe it's a little early. Maybe it's a little early in the process, but you know, later on in the stream last time, people were pretty excited and they're like, "Yeah, we'll play," you know. But we'll see what we get. So, we'll go back over some of the basic stuff, I guess. Then, so Legion Chaos Realms is a tabletop board game, and it is designed for 2 to 8 players. It says 13 and up, but the reason why is because in the production of the game, there are a couple different breakpoints for the recommended age of a game. Now, this game has small pieces, pieces that a child could get stuck in their throat, that type of thing, or in their nose, or in their ear, I suppose. So people who are not mature enough to not put these pieces in their ears and stuff like that is, you know, that's why we have to do 13 plus. So let's see. Let's go back to the beginning, and we will run through it fairly quickly. So what we're playing with is the original base set of cards. So we're playing with 19 realm cards and 8 ancestral homes, 9 core victory conditions. This is going to be the same for the game across the board. So you'll always have 9 core victory conditions no matter what version of the game you're playing. 24 antagonists and seasons, but in this version of the game, where you're only playing with a couple players, there are 4 antagonists. And those antagonists are the Abyss Lord, the Black Knight, the Death March, and the Inferno Dragon. And maybe so it's a little bit more exciting, we can go in and check those things out. Yeah, so let's view this by... and get our preview pane up here. And we'll pull this over onto the screen so that you guys can see it. So that you fine people can see it. And this guy behind my head now is the Abyss Lord. That's what we've chosen for the Abyss Lord. This is the Black Knight. Right here. And here's the Death March. And then the Inferno Dragon. Sitting on top of a volcano. He's happy up there. That doesn't bother him at all. Okay. And then the seasons. So there's 4 antagonists and 20 seasons in the basic game. But probably the game will be played with maybe 4 or 5 of those seasons. So every game is different because these realm cards are laid out randomly every time. This is not how the game map looks every single time because each of these is a card. And it's laid out randomly. Now, I left all of these right side up just so that they were, I don't know, easier to view, really. But some of these could be upside down or backwards because each of these cards is two-sided in the game. So that creates even more variety. So even though you only have 19 realms, it's not 19 realms taken 18 ways. It's actually 36 of these individual cards. So it's 18 cards taken 2 ways, taken 18 ways as far as this goes. So the factorial on that is ridiculous. You guys know what a factorial is? Yeah, that's a big number. So we're talking like 15? Let's see, a million is 6, right? A billion is 9 zeros. A trillion is 12 zeros. So this could be laid out in about 6 quintillion ways, I guess. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot, doesn't it? But let's just say a lot of ways. Let's say it could just be laid out a lot of different ways. And then the seasons also. You would only have 4 different seasons each time, or 5 different seasons each time out of the number. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how long the game goes. Okay, and then 8 ancestral homes, 8 sovereign race leaders for the game, so you can play one of 8 different races in the basic game. And then we've got the player reference cards. So maybe I'll put those up here also. So this player reference card and this player reference card here and then the season cycle, combat cycle, turn cycle, and core victories. So those are the player reference cards, and you could click on any of those in the Discord also to check that out. But let's go on. So, Legion Chaos Realms is a game about mass-scale fantasy warfare. So, in Roman times, a legion was designed to be 2,000 soldiers. This says 5,000 soldiers. That's a lot of soldiers. In Legion, it's designed to be 2,000 soldiers, I believe. But that's why it says mass scale fantasy warfare. The rules and lore are written at about a 9th grade level, so I went through and tested the lore and the rules to the game. So yeah, they're really working on the base down there, and then my little base up on the hill, I think is doing pretty well as also. And the base game should take about 30 minutes per player to complete. So I think you could play, if everybody knew how to play the game, they had played it once before, they're familiar with the rules, they don't have to learn all the rules and all that, because that's usually what takes a lot of time the first time you play one of these games, is it takes a lot of time to learn the rules. And I think I read the introduction before, but basically, the 3 leaders get together at a table somewhere over some mead and that sort of thing, and then they're talking about who's going to own the central castle of the region, which is Dominatus, and nobody can agree on anything, and people want different lands. They want to possess the Angel's Crossing or the King Throne Crest, and another race wants it also. Sorry, man, that's our ancestral right to be in the King Throne Crest. No, we need it for the ore, or whatever. And then they say, you dirty backstabbing leech sucker. I don't know. Whatever. Like, they all get upset with each other, and then they storm off and decide that they're going to go to war. So, war it is then. Okay? So, the game works basically at 3 tiered levels. You've got common, uncommon, and rare rules in the game. You'll encounter the common rules immediately and have to deal with them all the time. The uncommon rules will only take effect sometimes, and a rare rule may not even have an effect during the game at all, depending on what cards come up and that sort of thing. So, you determine who's going to go first, sit the players at the table. Usually the players are sitting near their ancestral home, wherever it's placed around the map. And if we get some players here in the next 20 minutes, we'll place these. But for example, the elves could form a triad over here by placing there. That would probably be optimal placement for the elves right there. Okay. And then we could put a Then we could put a magic triangle over here. And we probably want like purple with I don't know, like a gold outline. And this would just show us there's no counter for it in the game right now, but I thought it might be cool in the final game to make one. This would be another optimal placement for the elves over here. This would create another triad over here if they did that. So the elves have an opportunity for a triad there either way. I don't think the other races have an opportunity for a triad, but now either of those might not be the optimal placement for the elves, depending on what they're trying to do. Because if you're trying to place a field stronghold, you're going to need all of the different materials for that. So when the... Oh, looks like these guys can get one too. Looks like the trolls can create a triad by putting their ancestral home in either one of these locations. Okay, right here would create a triad between these three lands. Here, see? And placing here would do the same thing, even though the trolls would need an elemental or a ranger to get through this lightning mountain range over here. This would still create a triad on this side between these three lands. So they have an opportunity for a triad as well. And the Triton don't have an opportunity for a triad because there's not a way that they can place their ancestral home to create one. However, they may want to optimize based on the creation of a field stronghold, in which case they would want to have water, which comes from their own ancestral home, right? Mountain, plains, and forest, so that they would have stone to build with, food, wood to build with, and water. And this might be an optimal placement for the Triton because they would also have immediate access to Dominatus if they place their legions along these right here. And if the trolls wanted to do that, they probably want to be adjacent to one of these mountains here. But look at this. Here's a forest, sea, and plains over here. And they could place over here. Yeah, they want water, 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 and water. Those are the four things that they want. Okay, welcome in, Pilgrimage. It is good to see you, sir. What about the nomads? The nomads just want to wander around, I think, right? These are the three races that we've chosen. In the game, when you go about the creation of the game, you could have the player choose their ancestral race or have it randomized. A lot of times when we play, we randomize the ancestral race so that somebody gets to play something different every time. And but if you have a particular race that you want to play, just like in some of the tabletop war games like Warhammer or something like that, sometimes people have a particular race that they like to play more than the others. Good evening, Prussian Bastard. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in. How late is it where you are? Aren't you only like, I don't know, 6 hours off of me, whatever? Control A. Oh, 8 hours ahead. Are you 8 hours ahead of me? So it's 1700, 5:46 p.m., something like that? Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's cool. Okay, so you determine the seating, you determine the players that are going to play the game, and then you reveal the realms. Now, the realms are laid out in a certain pattern. Silly daylight savings time. I know, right? Okay, and then after the realms are laid out, then players need to have their mind on locations of strategic value. And the most important three things are the placement of you'll play the Great Khans. You like those guys? Those guys were so brutal to me in Fallout New Vegas. I think more brutal though was the Legion, right? It's kind of funny to say that, but those guys came at me hard in the desert on the way to Vegas. So players will consider where they place their ancestral homes, but two other things that they'll consider. They are definitely more human than the Legion, yeah. Terrain types. And so the elves, if they wanted to go with a purely combat-based strategy, the elves could place on this side of the map, creating a triad for them in either one of these two locations, and having access to probably the most forests. Because you see, they would have 4 forests if they owned all of these on this side of the map, and there would only be 3 other forests for them to contend with at all. What have the Romans ever done for us anyway? Yeah. I feel like the Romans are the great consolidators, and when you talk about history is written by the victors, I think there was a certain amount of that was done as well. So the Romans said, "Look at our pantheon of gods. They're not at all like the Greek gods, at all." And then when other religions came along, the Romans said, maybe we ought to adopt some of those things in as well so that, we can control our people. But anyhow, and then triads, which we've talked a fair amount about this morning, but So then after those ancestral homes are placed, everybody will gather up their legions. We have
Impressive.
we have conveniently split these up. Why do we only have 5? We need 6. I evidently only got 5 of these. So they'll have access to 6 sets of 3 legions just for convenience sake and placement, that sort of thing. The Romans also had treaties with their gods to make sure they stick to their portfolio. Yeah. So then after the ancestral homes are placed, you gather your legions, and then the players begin placing them on the map. So then it says to lay out the core victories for the game. So maybe we should roll up and grab those. That might be a lot. But we can place these in the Discord. Guess if people want to look at them. They're also on those cards are also on the core victories card that was placed in the prior post there for Legion game design. But you could look at any one of the individual cards if you wanted to. And then we would roll the first season and then go through the season cycle. So, and all of these are super quick. You just have to check each one of these bullet points, whatever, to see if anything applies. So we would rotate the first player and then rotate the season. And so we would grab one of the seasons from here. Now I've taken the liberty of randomizing what season will come first. So even though they're in order right now, I can take this section right here and then data sort it. Oops, not data sort it, A to Z. And that will randomize what season will come up next. And I've got those over here. The pillage cards also we can shuffle. There are 100 of those in the base game. Whoops, I did it again. A to Z. Because you see, I've created a random number here. Out to about, I think, 8 digits or something like that. And then if you sort this by that random number on the left, then it randomizes the ones on the right. And this is all I would have to do to randomize that a bunch of times. So that's basically shuffling the pillage deck. So at the beginning of each season, people would get reinforcements based on how well they're doing in the game. And so the first season would see that each of these races would own 6 of these 18 lands that are available. Dominatus is not available until you conquer it, and it has a castle on it. So these guys are going to win ties in combat in that castle. So those 3 legions, in the risk rules, they like to say that winning ties with a set of dice, those are about twice as strong as they would be. So the red bow tie today. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I thought that would be cool. I don't know how well it looks on the screen there with my charcoal colored shirt, but I like the red bow tie. After the reinforcements, then you would just do some cleanup things which don't apply during the first season, and then you would begin the cycle with the first player. Okay, and then it goes into a full explanation of the season cycle. After the season is rotated and you handle anything that happens with the season, then the first player would begin their turn. So, and a lot of these things don't apply on the first season or the first turn, but they'll apply later in the game. One of the things that doesn't really apply at the beginning of the first turn is declare the winner of the game. This has to happen before any other actions at the beginning of a player's turn. So that's when you find out if somebody has won. And then complete a field stronghold. But of course, you won't have begun a field stronghold, so you won't be able to do that at the very beginning of the game. But anywho, then the player would start their turn by using one of their action points. And you would do that, like in the case of the elves here, they would take one of their action points and place it over one of their leaders here, and then take a corresponding action. And if we want to, I guess we could shrink these down slightly. 0.6 is probably the wrong size for those. For those action points, but anyway. So they would either use the ability of the leader during this action, or they would just use the leader up and not use their action. If they do need that leader, they would need to supply that leader with the supplies they need for that particular ability. For example, the elves use arcane power to use their aviar ability. Okay. And if we go to, let's see here, should I put Discord over here so you guys can see it? So if we go to the elves card right here, the aviar ability has this little light blue symbol next to it with the eye in it. And then this allows the elves to fly over one additional realm on their movement. Okay. So in that case, the elves could move if their ancestral home were, say, here. The elves could attack from here to the razor scrub. And this thing needs to be much bigger than this. 6, 9, 15. I don't know, it needs to be huge. So they could attack from Anivore to the Razor Scrub without having to deal with this forest in between at all. So, and maybe we keep our arrow for later demonstration. Anyway. So in order to power that, the elves would need to have arcane power or arcane resources in order to do that. But if the elves were right here, they would most likely own both of these lands right next to their ancestral terrain. Sorry, next to their ancestral home. And then they would have that arcane power they needed to power this ability of this leader. Now, if they're not going to use that leader's ability, in other words, they're just going to move this or that, let's introduce cloud people who don't require any earth, forest, stone, or water because they're airborne.
Pilgrimage just redeemed. I have an idea.
That sounds actually like a good idea for the master game, I think. Yeah, for the master game. So maybe we're going to put that under, I think we're going to put that under founder ideas. We also have guilds, so. That's good. We have some races that that break the rules a little bit. So let's look in. Nope, not in this one. Let's look in this one for MPC and get the preview pane up there so that you guys can see this one. And if I scroll down to the guilds, yeah. So these purple ones are guilds, and they don't have an ancestral terrain. Now they still need one of each type of terrain in order to build a stronghold. Any races that exist in the game but cannot be played by players? Yeah. I mean, the only faction or race that really exists in Mechanism are the ghosts. So if a player, their mom calls them and says, you got to come home right now, and the other players don't want to stop playing the game, then what you do is you convert all of that player's legions to ghosts. Yeah. So, like, for example, in the center of the map here, we have the ghosts of Dominatus right here. And this is a non-player set of units right here. 3 legions that begin on Dominatus that have to be conquered by the players before they can take that central castle. So the only one that exists in canon Mechanism are the ghosts right now. There were initially some scenarios where players could play against NPC races. If you had fewer players than the sized map that you wanted to play, then we could put a non-player race in there. Now, in those cases, some of the artificial intelligence or design of the mechanism of the behavior of the NPC comes from the lands that they inhabit. So, in the case of a monster legion, like the ones that exist on Dominatus right here, if there were a monster legion later in the game, in the master game, there are monster legions on other realms other than Dominatus. So, for example, if a monster legion existed in the Pale Wood, or let's say the Razor Scrub right here, if this monster legion existed in the Razor Scrub, they would always use this ability, which is this might be hard for you guys to see, but on this realm, this is an archer realm, the Razor Scrub. And this legion right here, this set of legions, would always use the archer ability if it applied at all. So they'll use no other ability from this particular realm, but if you were to attack them, they would use the archer ability before your attack. So so on the first player's turn, they would either start combat between two realms, move legions along a route. So if they needed to move legions around, reinforce, get some more legions to the front for a heavier attack, that sort of thing. Activate a leader's ability. Like in the case of the elves here, they have the nurturer ability. So they may want to test their legions and see if they can just get extra legions by just having more elf babies. And that's an example of a type of ability that doesn't move legions or attack somebody else, right? That's a leader's special ability. They could begin building a field stronghold. So then on your turn, you would place a marker from the game that looks a little bit like this over here. And if I could get a circle up here, I could probably, let me insert a picture for that in case we need it for later. So this could end up being our field stronghold. Let's go ahead and make it, yeah, 1 by 1. And then let's see if we can fill this with the picture for that, and then I'll make it larger. We've got the aspect ratio locked, so let's go with a picture fill from file for we have to go into unit icons for that. There we go. Stronghold completed. There we go. That's good. So we'll take this and give it a solid line that is white. So this right here, and we'll just hit Control Z after we make this larger, but I want you guys to be able to see this. This is That's what a stronghold symbol looks like for the map. So, but a player could begin building a stronghold on one of their realms, and then this would actually have a ruin symbol on it for the other side. So before it was complete, it has an under construction sort of look to it. And here's the one that's under construction. So this icon just has a lot of like boxes and some scaffolding and things like this. This one right here. It has barrels and some rope that's laid out in a grid pattern and that sort of thing. And some barrels and supplies and some bricks for building the tower and that sort of stuff. So this is on the back side of this stronghold symbol, and this is what the player would place on the map if they were beginning a stronghold. Because one of the mechanisms in the game is that you can stop a player from completing their stronghold if you can take away one of the 4 resources that they need to complete it at the beginning of their next turn. And that's what that's the only thing that leader would do for that particular turn, is start a stronghold. If they complete the stronghold, then it remains, and if they don't complete it, then it just remains under construction and doesn't have the mechanism effect of allowing that player to win ties in combat when defending that stronghold. But at the beginning of that player's turn, it is an automatic free action if they have a field stronghold that they can complete. It just gets completed at the beginning of their next turn. So all the other players have basically 1 turn to stop them from completing that field stronghold. And each player can also pass the turn, and they would instead move one of their action points from their action points available, which are these little boxes up here, and they would move it down to the reserved action points down here. And then they could use that action point for defense at a later time. Not knowing a lot about board games in this genre, how does this game differentiate itself from competitors? Well, let me not say every. Let me say most, if not all, of the competition for this game doesn't have the variety that this game does, because one of the differentiating things about this game is that these cards are two-sided. Even a couple games where the map is laid out in a random fashion. Welcome in, First Crusaders. Thank you for putting your faith in the light. I think it is well placed. And thank you for that as well. And man, I have to get better at that. I love that emote of yours. Yeah, that is amazing. I have not been able to do something fun like that. All I really have done lately, all I've done lately is this little dancing blood elf, and she's so tiny. I mean, I think you can tell she's dancing, but I don't know if on mobile you can even tell what is going on with that at all. So one of the differentiating points that this game has is the two-sided cards. I'm unaware of another game that has two-sided cards to increase the variety of the layout of the game. Some do have two-sided tiles of various types, but then those games, as far as I'm aware, don't lay out the map randomly. Those tiles are placed in a particular fashion designed by the game designer. The seasons are also another thing that differentiates the game. I think the antagonists are another thing. Antagonists are, like I was saying before, like the Inferno Dragon. The Inferno Dragon has a particular built-in artificial intelligence that it uses to take its actions on the board, but those change up the game a lot when the antagonists come out. So let's scroll up to the top and grab one of these antagonists and take a look at their artificial intelligence. But this is the old picture for the Inferno Dragon, but when the Inferno Dragon comes out, it says, attacks a realm in the largest chain of terrain. So, on the map that we have right now, let's say that the Inferno Dragon comes out first round. That means the first player, or the active player for the beginning of that season, would be the elves. And the elves would then choose, but the elves can only choose one of these largest terrain types. If they had their ancestral home placed here, then the elves would probably not want to choose forests. However, if the trolls had placed here, for example, the largest continuous line or group of terrain on this map would be this set of forests right here, which is where the elves are. Because you can draw a line through these continuously without having to overlap or backtrack, and you can get 4 forests in this line, right? But you can't get 4 mountains. Now, so in that case, the elves would have to choose their own forests for the placement of the Inferno Dragon, even though they didn't want to. If the trolls had placed here, however, then you can draw a line through these, and then that would be 4 mountains. If this were the placement and the elves were choosing, the elves could choose one of these 3, because you can't choose an ancestral home for the placement of the Inferno Dragon, but they could choose one of these mountains for the Inferno Dragon, maybe placing it over here in Carmen Brie, because this is the furthest away from them. So let's go back to the artificial intelligence for the Inferno Dragon, the way that it's written right now. So the elves would choose one of the largest chain of terrain. It has 5 legions. So then you would place 5 legions on the map, 5 black legions for the Inferno Dragon. And then each turn, it gains a legion if any realm in the chain is occupied. Then it attacks one of those realms, even if it's non-adjacent. So the Inferno Dragon would be able to jump around this chain of mountains over here, attacking anybody who was in it until it was all done. Now, the Inferno Dragon is going to just attack one time each round, but they can have a pronounced effect on the game when that happens. Another differentiating point for this game, and I think that the biggest difference between this games and other games is that it puts all of this chaos together. It was part of the reason why the game was named Legion Chaos Realms, because of all of the crazy things that can happen in the game. So unlike Risk, which, depending on where players sit and the placement of their armies and that sort of thing, it can be a similar game each time. There's a lot of variation, of course, whether you win or lose in your endeavors on the map. Even if you have the same strategy every time, things will be a little bit different depending on if you win or lose some of those battles, or what cards you draw. But there's not as much random nature to the game as there is in Chaos Realms. So, and we were going to try and play the game, but we're just going to keep talking about how the game would progress until we have, if not this time, then in a future stream when we have 3 players who are at their PCs and in Discord and ready to play. Then we'll play a full game of Legion on the stream. Well, we just need 3 players. I know, and I want to. We need 3 players. So, Phil, I'm guessing that you're in my Discord. You can see those pictures that I posted in there, right? And I posted them under hoo-hoo. There we go. I posted them under Legion Game Design over here. So should have access to that. Everybody should have access to it. And then I've placed a bunch of cards so that if, like, let's say, Phil, you ended up playing the Trolls, you can just click on this card in your Discord, and you could then see what your ancestral home looks like and what abilities it has, and then you could click on your own player card to see what your different legions do and that sort of thing. So far we have 1 player. We probably need at least 2. We could play a game with 2, but I don't want to force anybody to do it. But if at any points at least 2 players volunteer, then we can clash on the board with the 2 players if we want to. And I feel like I knew that you would be one of the people ready to go. Thank you for that, Phil. So then after that player took their turn, they would get down here to the bottom. If they had had a victory and had received a pillage card, they could see if they could claim that pillage card's condition, either solve it as a quest or, something like that. Or they could maybe claim or reset a core victory condition. For example, if the elves had placed here, and they possessed all of these forests here, then the elves could potentially come in here and claim the card for the most forests, which I think would be this one. Yeah, so they would choose Forest Elder because their ancestral home, or their ancestral terrain rather, is forests. And if they did have the most forests, they would then claim this victory condition, Forest Elder. But you can only do 1 of these free actions during each of your turns. So you couldn't claim the victory for the pillage card and the victory condition. And you can also discard a pillage card for legions. So if you pulled a pillage card that you couldn't use, you could then discard that card and then get the legions for it. Okay, and then after that player's turn, they would take a single turn and either attack, move, use their abilities, whatever. If they did initiate combat, there is a player reference card for the combat cycle. And then you would use the combat cycle reference card just to check each little point in the combat. Now, it looks like there's 13 steps to this, but they're all really small. Like attacker chooses their leader, then the defender chooses their leader if they want. Attacker demonstrates the attack route. Attacker moves legions onto realm. So these are tiny, tiny little things just to make sure that everything goes right. For example, if someone wanted to attack from the Shadow Canopy to the Seaside Citadel, when it says the attacker demonstrates the route, all they have to do is show that they can get there. Either through their leader's ability, if they wanted to attack, for example, from Angel's Crossing here, down into the Painter's Wool, that's going through this currently, this little lightning mountain area. So they would have to demonstrate that they had the ability to transcend that, either through the use of a ranger that can get past this mountain range, or they could say, well, I intend to fly instead to get around that. And then if it were, say, the elves attacking, they would show that they had activated their aviar ability, and they were going to fly over the township of Clay into the Painter's Wool, therefore circumnavigating this lightning mountains right here. If people can fly, there's no need for cloud people. But the number of abilities that we have in the game would allow for additional races. There are other combinations that I don't have yet, of course, for the races in the game. Because there are, on the player reference cards, it shows all of the abilities for both the basic and advanced game. But that's this one and this one here. So here on this card we have 3, 6, 9. So there's 10 on here and 10 on here. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 on here. And then each race is a combination of those. They have 6 of those abilities. 6 of those, whatever it is, 23 abilities. 3, 6, 9, 12, 26 different abilities. But once again, they're all really small. Like the Crusader, for example, you just get 1 additional die if you're attacking. So once you kind of remember what that symbol means. And also, each person has on their card that's in front of them all of their own abilities that they can use. And in the combat, you're supposed to announce the first time that you reveal a rule to the game, you're supposed to announce that that is the case. So if the elves were to use their aviar ability, that would be part of the demonstration, is they would say, go ahead and update there. Update for the preview, there we go. They would say, I'm using my aviar, and the aviar lets me attack, reinforce, or flee along a valid route over an additional realm. So then everybody would know that that was in effect for that combat. and that's what Avier did. Okay. Then the attacker moves the legions onto the realm. Attacker, then offender, then defender resolves before combat abilities such as archer. Determine the combat dice, and then both players, like let's say this player had 2 dice. Then they would roll their dice, and the attacker would roll their dice, and then they would be compared. The attacker rolling 5, 4, 4, compared to, from the greatest to the least. The 5 and the 4 here would compare with the 4 and 2, and the defender would lose 2 legions from that attack. And then it just goes back to the next player's turn, and they take a little micro turn, and then it just keeps going around the table. Once somebody has 10 victory points, they win the game. And this will almost always happen within 30 minutes per player. Because even if you try and conserve your legions and keep your realms reinforced, seasons can affect the number of legions that you will have. Antagonists can affect the number of legions you will have available. And then, of course, your opponents will be wanting those pillage cards so that they can complete their victory points and win the game. And so hilarity ensues. So in the core victories in the game is 1 for each type of terrain, the most forests, the most mountains, the most plains, and the most seas. When you used to play Risk, you used to know what the actual odds were when attacking or defending with dice. A lot of people really did not study that, even though it was pretty simple, even if you included marching across several countries. Yeah. And knowing those probabilities probably gave you an extreme edge. I also studied those probabilities, so when I was looking at 5 armies against 4 armies, or, you know, that sort of thing, you know that that's going to be a brutal battle. And if you need to take a country for sure, you need to know that those probabilities are in your favor, even though crazy bad things can happen. Then the most strongholds. Now, the only way you're going to get the most strongholds, because each person will have a stronghold on their ancestral home. So each of the players would be given 2 of these so that they could build a stronghold later. But there would always be a stronghold on their ancestral home as well. Because it's not like Monopoly, but a lot of people think it is. I think people, I think that there are several blockades that happen when a player plays Risk for the first time. And one is those armies are all over the board, and maybe you don't understand the conservation of energy or the importance of an attack in gaining those cards so that you can get more reinforcements later in the game, or some of the other intricacies of the game, like holding on to your cards until you can turn them in for a larger number of armies later. So there's a lot of strategy to that. But Risk also, at least the way that we played it, I'm not sure, everybody plays Monopoly differently, and everybody has house rules, or they were taught by somebody who taught them a house rule. For example, like taking money off of free parking. Like when people go to jail and things like that. They would put the money on free parking, and then when you landed there, you would get that money. as if somebody had lost their money in the parking lot, but that is not in the rules as written for Monopoly, but a lot of people play it that way. So house rules and that sort of thing. Now, when we played Risk, usually because of the number of armies that it provides Asia, yeah. Oh, some people play where it's the same number of every time. Yeah, I thought so. Was it an optional rule for the number of armies per set to be progressive? That's how we always played it. But in game design, one thing that I like to talk about in game design is entropy. Okay, you can never defend Russia, Asia. Everybody would try, but you can defend Australia. Some people ended up loving defending Australia for sure. And entropy, if you go by its I don't know, Webster definition. Yeah, entropy. Scientific concept that is most commonly associated with a state of disorder, randomness, or uncertainty. Okay. And that is the tendency for something in a system basically to deteriorate, right? So there needs to be a certain amount of entropy in the game so that it drives the game forward. In online games, economies often get out of hand because there's not enough entropy built into the system to keep it in check. There needs to be some way that the energy of a system is lost over time so that you force players to do work. All right. Now, when we're talking about economics, right? The way that people attempt to estimate whether or not players in the economy will behave in a certain way is by determining their desires against the other desires of the other players in the economy. You can play a stronghold on your turn. Yes, but the way that it works is, like, for example, each player in the base version of the game is given 2 strongholds. The first stronghold is placed on their ancestral home, and they always get that one for free. Okay? And the second one can be placed as a stronghold that's being built. All right? So if the elves wanted another stronghold immediately adjacent to their ancestral home, they could place this down, and this is a stronghold under construction. They would do that on their turn, and then on their next turn, at the very beginning of their next turn, it would automatically become a stronghold. Now, that's only if the elves can supply it. All right? This is the thing that keeps you from just putting a stronghold down every turn. So on your turn, you would only place a stronghold if you could then supply it later. So if the elves placed one here, the elves would need to have access to, so let's just show this might be the case. the elves have access to these realms right here. If the elves did have access to these realms, and what I'm basically saying is forest, plains, mountains, and sea, then this stronghold would complete. They must supply this stronghold with one of each of the types of terrain. So if this is all the elves owned, are these 6 right here. Basically 3 forests, 1 sea, 1 mountain, and 1 plains, they would not want to build another stronghold. Their ancestral stronghold is supplied automatically. It doesn't require those supplies, and it is a permanent battlement on their ancestral home. However, what is called a field stronghold means that you have a stronghold other than your ancestral home. You must have a set of each of the 4 different types of land in order to supply it. Correct. So if the elves were winning and they had 2 seas, 2 mountains, 2 plains, and 2 forests, they could build an additional stronghold and then supply them both because they have 2 sets of those types of terrain. And so this is the reason that you have to be careful when you place these strongholds. Otherwise, a stronghold will deteriorate if you don't pay attention to it. Like in Arc Official, if you build a wooden house and then you don't visit it for 2 weeks, it will be either extremely damaged or destroyed when you log back on. Because I think that a wooden structure lasts about 1 week. And the middle one does not count as a field stronghold until you possess it. So if you beat the ghosts that are on the castle at Dominatus, you still have to supply that, but you don't have to create it, and it can't deteriorate. But you can lose people by not being able to supply them with what they need for that castle. And that is considered a field stronghold. Anything that is not an ancestral stronghold, which are only on the ancestral homes, that is considered to be, you have to have the realms to cover that one as well. If you reach out to Dominatus, though, you may have 2 sets of these already. I don't know if you will, but also the elves didn't have to build this one. If the elves had intended instead to possess Dominatus, and they ended up taking Dominatus with their legions, then they could sit in this stronghold and then supply this stronghold from there. Now the stronghold doesn't deteriorate until just one legion per turn. So your people start to starve if you can't supply that stronghold. But if you can supply the stronghold, it gets 1 additional reinforcement every time reinforcements come up every season. So basically, you have each player excuse me. Each player has 5 mini turns. And after each player had taken those 5 mini turns, the season would rotate. If you possessed a field stronghold during reinforcement on the season card, say, see where it says, let's see here, 1 legion in each field stronghold. As long as it's not under siege, which means you can't supply it. If you have a second set and someone takes one of the realms over, well, what happens is that's not checked until the season rotates. So let's say on your 3rd turn, someone takes your 2nd plains that you had, and now you are 1 plains short of 2 sets, and you have 2 field strongholds, you will need to take that plains back, or you will need to choose one of your strongholds didn't get supplied, and instead of gaining a legion during the season cycle, you will lose a legion from starvation and disease and the deterioration of your stronghold. But if you have a second set and you have 2 field strongholds and then someone takes it over, then they get the bonus for that field stronghold. So they win ties in combat when they're in that stronghold. But when the season cycle comes around, they will have to supply that now. So it goes all the way around first to the next season. Yeah. So each player takes 5 of these micro turns, and then it's the next season. So if you look at it this way, yeah. Well, in the creation of the game over the last 20 years, I did a lot of research into actual medieval stronghold building. There was a great series that I watched. I'm trying to think of what it was called. But they used only the medieval methods, and they built a little, not an entire castle, but they built kind of like a little fort. I think it was a couple of towers and a wall. But they built it using the medieval methods for that. So they didn't use any modern technology. They brought in masons to carve the stone, and they made the mortar out of local materials and all of that. It was an absolutely fascinating show. But also the real Dracula, not the vampire, but the guy who put his enemies on pikes to demonstrate his ruthlessness in warfare. There was another documentary that I watched on the creation of Dracula's castle, and one of the things that was very influential in the creation of the realms for the game, or the terrain types, is that he chose his castle location based on the fact that he had access to fields for food, forests for wood, large amount of stone from cliffs and mountains and things like that. And then there was a river that ran right by it, so he had access to water as well. And those 4 things made him think, or him and his council or his architects or whatever, they're like, this is the place to build this castle. And so that's the reasoning for the creation and supply of these field strongholds in the game. And the reason for some of the game mechanisms. Now, it's not a simulation, as we talk about it in the tabletop industry. In the tabletop industry, we differentiate. There are different types of games, and they run a range between game and simulation, right? So a simulation is, although you don't have to, for example, truly survive in a video game like The Long Dark, it is much closer to a simulation because you're constantly having to worry about how tired you are, how cold you are, how much food you have, how much water you have, and whether or not you're injured. Right? So that's much closer to a simulation. something like Minecraft is much closer to what we call a game. Because although some of those things, like eating food and that sort of thing, those things are handled as game mechanisms, where maybe you get a buff if you eat food, or you can regain health if you eat food. You're not constantly starving, freezing, being attacked by wolves, and things like that. But outside of simulation, of course, is like Survivor, not the part where they play games, right? But I'm Naked and Afraid, right? That goes outside of simulation because you take your actual body and drop it somewhere in a swamp and get dysentery from drinking dirty water. That's outside of simulation. That's real life. But Legion Chaos Realms is more of a game. But an elegant rule will allow you to say, yeah, that's pretty similar to the way that this happens in real life. Secrets of the Castle, I believe so. You looked it up? That's great. Secrets of the Castle. Let's see if that's what it was. Because maybe the viewers would like to see that. It was, in fact, Secrets of the Castle. You have to watch. That looks really cool. So back to what I was saying about entropy. In my game, Wench Top Shelf, or Wench the Thinking Man's Drinking Game, there are cards in the set that are designed to allow some players or all players to discard their cards on a regular basis, so that the total number of cards in the game keeps going down. And that drives the game toward its conclusion. Imagine if all of the cards in Wench, because the goal of the game of Wench is to discard all your cards. Imagine if in the total set, none of the cards said discard. Well, that's absurd, but you can see what I'm talking about. If the purpose of the game was to get rid of all your cards and all of the cards only said draw or give the card to someone else, it would be very difficult to get rid of all your cards. So the set was designed so the entropy was higher. So cards that say discard outnumber the cards that say draw cards or just hand one to another player. Yeah, that would make no sense. So in the game of Legion, it gets easier and easier to get the smaller victory points, like the one victory point that you'll get from solving a pillage card. It gets easier near the end of the game to get those cards. Even if only slightly. Because the entropy that's built into the game was designed so that on the average, the number of legions that will be lost by an ancestral race will be slightly higher than the legions that they get back. The only way to overcome this is to be one of the leaders in the game. So it slowly pushes the leaders into a position where they have overcome that entropy, even if only slightly, and they will end up with legions to reinforce their borders. And the people who are losing the game or not solving those pillage cards and not getting those victory points, they will not have enough reinforcement legions to overcome the entropy of the game, and they will slowly get edged out. And that's the reason for entropy, is to drive a game toward its conclusion. And Monopoly, for the type of game that it is, it's a very random sort of game. It has lots of randomness and a lot of what I call kingmaker, sort of thing, where if you make bad trades with somebody, bad trades for you. It's a good trade for them. It's a bad trade for you. And then, you end up giving them Park Place and Boardwalk, and then randomly, because of that random element, you land on Park Place or Boardwalk and then end up paying them rent because of a combination of bad decisions that you made and the fact that you rolled the dice and landed on their, for all the things that Monopoly is in all those ways that I just talked about, Monopoly has mechanisms which are entropic, and that entropy causes people to lose money over time. And you may end up gaining a lot of money because players are paying it, but the total amount of cards that say you lose money to the bank are greater than the cards that say you gain money from the bank. Or all of your wood? Correct. In Settlers of Catan, there is a card called Monopoly, and you can, I don't know if it's called Monopoly, but you monopolize a single type of resource in the game. Now that card is a game changer, but let's say you need stone. Well, there's two ways you could go about this, to my mind. You could just reveal that card and say, I need everybody's stone. You play that card, and then everybody has to give you their stone. Well, there is another way to play it. What if I have some stone, and everybody wants it, and I have that card? I don't play that card until I have traded away all of my stone for anything that people will give me other than stone. And now that you all have the stone that you want, and I have your other resources that you traded to me, I will now also play this card, and you will give me back all that stone. And that did not win me any friends that day. That did not win me any friends at all. But that's the second way to play that card, is trade away all of the resources that you're about to steal for the resources that they have, and then go ahead and steal back what you traded them. Yeah, good times, good times. You were furious when that happened to you? It sounds like a terrible, terrible player who did that to you. A terrible person. I'm one of those players. I think I was. As long as we're on it, why don't we say this? Why don't we say maybe what we should do, if everybody would be, if it would be easier for everybody to play on a Saturday, then maybe I can try and find a Saturday where or I could live stream this, and then we could attempt to play when maybe people weren't at work. But because we need at least two players who are we need at least two players who are at their. You could try when you're not working. That might be nice. And then if we had you and Phil both on, then. So let me see if I can post this and then pin it. So, and what we need two or ideally three players at their terminal in Discord. Okay, so I'll post this, and then I think I can pin it. Can I pin this thing? Pin it. Okay, so I pinned a message there. And that pinned message now says, in order to play, we need two or ideally three players at their terminal in Discord available to play for the length of the stream. So, says ancient IT guy. I was going to say at their PC, but you know, maybe you have something different other than a PC, but I just meant computer, I guess. Yeah, so maybe we'll try and put that up on a Saturday. Why don't we put that on our list here? Now, I don't know. I guess I'm a crazy person. I did 27 hours the other day in a row with 1 hour break. So it wasn't a continuous 24-hour stream, but I promise you guys a 24-hour stream, and that's coming up on Sunday. So I just wanted to talk about that. I'm going to 24-hour stream from midnight. The midnight that is between between Saturday and Sunday. And the midnight that ends Sunday. All day Sunday. Sunday. All day Sunday. And that is, I believe, the 7th, right? Why is my calendar not working? There we go. Sunday the 7th. So that's, geez, 2 days away. 2 days away. You don't try to work on weekends, but you're freelance, so sometimes you have to. But, yep. Yeah, me too. And you know what? When I say available to play for the stream, I just mean that you sort of earmarked that time. It can happen to me too. I have to have my phone beside me the whole time, just in case one of my clients needs me for something. I haven't had to do it very often. I've been able to solve a lot of these things just on a short break with you guys, but owning an IT company or being freelance means that that's either when you earn your money or that's when the money comes in, is just whenever they call. So that's a possibility. If we move on past the victory points here, well, actually, so in addition, the most strongholds, we talked about that because you could own field strongholds. If the elves had just claimed Dominatus and no one else had built a stronghold, they would have 2 strongholds, and that would be the most strongholds in the game. Okay? So the most strongholds, it actually says a player claiming this victory condition and possessing it during the season cycle gains 2 victory points, or 3 victory points if they control at least 3 ancestral strongholds. So you actually have to have 3 strongholds in order to do it. So the elves would need to build one in order to have 3 or more strongholds. So possessing Dominatus won't do it by itself. You'll need to build a stronghold of your own. In which case, the elves would need to either deal with the legion that they lost from one of those strongholds, or they would need to have 2 sets, because they don't need to have 1 set for their ancestral home, but they would need to have 2 full sets of the terrain types in order to supply both of their field strongholds. 2 victory points for the most triads. If we're going to talk about the most triads here, then we should put the trolls where they might have one. The trolls created a triad here by placing their ancestral home there at the beginning of the game. The same way the elves made a triad over here. So this would be the trolls triad, these 3 lands that were together. And this would be the elves triad over here. And I feel like I need to somehow change the color of that. I know that for some people, especially playing on mobile, this is probably not super easy to see, but let's go ahead and take this. I don't know, maybe we'll make this shape outline black and much more pronounced. I don't know. Anyway, this would be the 2 triads that were in the game. The ones that were created by the forest player who placed their ancestral home next to these other 2 forests. And then this one here would be created over here by the trolls by placing their mountain next to these other 2 mountains here. Now, if that were the case, when we're talking about whoever has the most triads, if each player possessed 1 completely, then neither one of them would qualify for this victory condition. However, if the trolls took this away from the elves, if they took Dontet away from the elves, and that were instead troll-controlled, then the elves do not count as possessing this entire triad, because the trolls are there. In that case, the Trolls would possess the most triads, which is 1, because the Elves possessed no triads at that point. The Trolls would claim that victory condition, and if the Elves couldn't reset that victory condition before the next season, it becomes permanent. That's another thing about entropy and driving the game toward its end. If you have a victory condition at the beginning of the season, that victory condition becomes permanent for you. If the Elves took control of Dominatus and then the season rolled, at the beginning of that next season, the Elves would keep the victory points for possessing Dominatus at the beginning of that season. And even if someone took Dominatus after that, the Elves still have the victory points for what they did that prior season. So any victory points that you gain at the beginning of the season, they become permanent. Any victory points you gain from pillage cards are permanent the moment you solve them. So even if they somehow don't apply later, if at the beginning of the season the Trolls have the most triads and the Elves couldn't get this land back, they couldn't get Dauntet back from the Trolls, at the beginning of the season, the Trolls would get 2 victory points for having the most triads. They would actually get 3 victory points because the flip side of that card says, if that triad is your ancestral terrain, then you get 3 victory points instead. That victory point card, let me show it to you. That victory point card would become permanent for the Trolls. And I believe that is Mountain Elder. And it must be under the B side for these. Mountain Elder. Nope. Where's the Triad one? Troikon. Control the most Triad realms or the most Joiner realms if there are no Triads. One of the Triads or the Joiner realms must be your ancestral terrain. So, is there a Joiner realm? I guess we didn't really. There has to be a Joiner realm. There's not one on this map because I think Joiner is in the next expansion for the game. The Joiner ability is from the first expansion, I believe. So there wouldn't be any on here. So it would be just Triads that we're talking about. In which case, at the beginning of the season, if the Elves had not taken their Triad back, the Trolls would get these 3 victory points and they would become permanent. Even if the Elves took their Triad back later, they couldn't take this victory away from the Trolls. So as you move on in the game, and those victory points become permanent at the beginning of each season, that drives the game toward an end. At one point in the creation of Legion Chaos Realms, players were able to take these away from each other, and then your points just keep kind of going up and down as you fight. And it doesn't really make any sense. It also doesn't create that sense of tension and that imperative nature of fixing the problem before the season rolls. It also creates these really cool moments where you save your, instead of using them for defense or, spending them on actions that you didn't have to take, you save your action points. And if you're the last player in the season and you can organize it so that you took this victory on the very last turn of that season, then the season will roll and no one will have the opportunity. I mean, you will have gone last as a player, during that season. But you can use that last position, just like in Mario Kart. Oh, I'm in second place? Well, at least I won't get hit by the red shell, right? Because that red shell is always trying to hit the first player. The first player gets spun out, and then the second player becomes first. A lot of Mario Kart players, they like to be in second up until the very end, because that red shell is meant to knock the person out of first. So first is a very dangerous position. And second is just slightly less dangerous. And as long as you can stay right behind them when they get hit by that red shell, then you go into first and win the race. But you can do the same thing in Legion Chaos Realms if you organize it correctly. The trolls could take that realm as the very last turn, or in the case here, let's look at this right here. Let's say during this first turn, the elves spend their final action point, and the trolls have 1 action point left, and the Triton have 1 action point left, right? But the Triton are over here somewhere. Say they're right here. Then the Triton may have no way to fix the trolls' victory point, because the trolls would then take this triad or take this forest away from the elves, claim the victory, and then the Triton would have 1 more turn, but the Triton couldn't do anything about it. They'd be all the way across the map, right? And then the trolls would get that victory point. 2 more realms than other players. So if you're just winning your victories and you end up owning 2 more realms than any other player, all 3 of these players would have owned 6 realms at the beginning of the game. So in order to have 2 more realms than the other players, all you would have to do is just take 1 realm from each of the other players. And that is totally doable and fairly quickly in the game. Now, taking those realms and then holding them, that's the other thing, because those players aren't going to want you to have those victory points. And they certainly won't want them to become permanent at the end of the season. So, and the next one is the most ancestral strongholds. Now, not everybody likes PvP, player versus player. I personally like player versus environment. I think it's totally fair that the mechanisms and the artificial intelligence or the behavior of my non-player enemies happen in a certain way. It's fine if a T-Rex wants to eat me, that sort of thing, but I like player versus environment. But for those people who like that cutthroat feeling of taking somebody else's home away from them, all you would have to do in order to claim this victory is take one of the other players' ancestral homes away from them. If the Triton came over here and the Triton somehow ended up possessing the Elven Fortress, let's bring this to the front. They somehow possessed the Elven Fortress, then the Triton would own their own ancestral stronghold. And they would also own the Elven ancestral stronghold. And the Trolls would only own 1 ancestral stronghold, their own. Right? In that case, the Tritons would own 2 ancestral homes and be able to choose this victory for the most ancestral strongholds. But you have to go take somebody else's house. And don't forget, they win ties while you're attacking them. So you better be sure. You better be sure. And then, of course, Dominatus, the center of the realms. And for half of the victory points in the game, if you can become the Dominator, that means you control Dominatus and all realms adjacent to it. So you own 7 realms in the center of the map. That's half of the victory points that's the hat trick right there. That's half of the victory points you need to win the game. But just think, even with just 3 players in the game, to get all 7 of those center realms, including Dominatus, you would need, it has happened. It has happened, and it is brutal. Now, if that rotates, then you'll have half of the points you need to win the game. But you will be contending with every other player to have that happen. So this is not only King of the Hill, but this is King of the Hill and all of the hills that are adjacent to it. So, if we move on from there, the veteran game is the first expansion, and it's called Fate's Portal. And Fate's Portal adds a new mechanism called gates. Now, in the basic game, adjacency means the cards are next to each other. That's all it means. So Anivore is adjacent to the Palewood here, these 2 forests. Over here, Vieras is adjacent to the Seaside Citadel, these 2 seas over here. And Vieras is adjacent to the Shadow Canopy, and that's how you move around the board. But in the Fate's Portal expansion, several of the lands have a gate on them. And in addition to the cards that they're next to, gates are considered to be adjacent to every other realm with a gate symbol. Meaning you step through a portal and just appear in that other realm that has the gate symbol on it. So it creates a different sort of dynamic to moving around on the map. And possessing a gate and reinforcing that gate can be really important because it gives you options that may be all the way across the map from you. In addition, Fate's Portal adds Peril Realms. Peril Realms are hazardous things like, I don't know, volcanoes, tar pits, Arctic forests, or things like that, where survival in that realm is not guaranteed. If you activate an ability when a peril realm is involved, then you have to roll your dice. Let's say you had 3 legions and you activate a peril realm just because you want to move through it, or you want to attack from it, or you want to attack to it. You would have to roll 3 dice. Let's roll these dice. And if we get any number of 1s, we lose one of our legions to the lava or the frost or whatever. 2 1s. So we would lose 1 legion because we rolled any number of 1s. So we would lose 1 legion when we activated that ability, or move through that realm, or whatever. And seasons in the Fate's Portal expansion can also cause realms to be perilous. So this, for example, would be a card that would say landslide or something like that. And then it would say the largest continuous chain of mountains become perilous for this entire season because of the landslides in that area, or avalanche, or tidal wave for the seas, or whatever. Okay. Also, instead of 19 realms, Fate's Portal is played, typically. Fate's Portal is played with 37 realms. In this fashion right here. Okay? And also allows up to 6 players to play. Now, let's say we get into 2025 and 100 of you lucky people decide to support this Kickstarter and end up with a copy of Legion Chaos Realms. Another differentiating thing about this is all of these components can be played any way your group of players wants to play them. We have played several times with only 4 players, but used every realm that we had, laid out a giant map, and played like a 4 or 5 hour game of Legion with every realm that we possess, even though the master game is intended to be played by 7 or 8 players. You could take realms and put them in an envelope in your box and say, I don't like those realms. I don't want to ever play with those realms, and that's fine. I was very careful with each of the expansions to make it so that no matter how you shuffle those cards, if you lay them out in the way that the game is designed, there will always be at least one of each symbol on the map. Front or back, it doesn't matter. Every combination of those will have one of each of the symbols on the map if you play it in the way that the game is designed to be played. If you, however, don't want to have Dominatus as the center of your realm and you don't want to play with that victory card, you can play a different type of game. You could design your own game. I'm currently trying to design a... How do I say this? Get the artifact to the place of its creation for the destruction of that artifact, because it's evil, like the fruits of the devil. And maybe a band of heroes has to take that artifact to the... Is anybody getting this? Anybody? Is this... So very similar to Lord of the Rings, where the players would be contending to either aid or thwart the band of heroes while they attempted to complete this legendary quest, but using the realms from Legion Chaos Realms. So you can play it any way that you wanted to. Now in the master game, it adds additional concepts to the game. One is monster realms. These are realms that are not initially held by the players, but instead are held by monsters, just the same way that Dominatus is. So if you want to win that realm and own it, you have to kick the monsters out first. Okay? And at the beginning of the game, that realm would be occupied by 3 antagonist legions, the same way that Dominatus is occupied by 3 antagonist legions at the beginning of the game. All right? And there is actually one race called the Wilder that can, once per season, direct the monster antagonist legions to attack one of their enemies. Because those guys are monster wranglers. They're dino tamers. Anyway, that's one of the concepts that's added in the master game. Another concept that's added, Wilders. The Wilders are a guild. So these are all races here, like the Crowned are a plains race, and the Dryads are a forest race. But the guilds don't have an ancestral terrain. They operate a little bit differently. Instead, the Wilders, for example, want to possess lands that have the wild symbol. So the takeaway is they don't get any bonuses for ancestral terrain. But if they own at least one land that produces wild resources, they will always be able to use all of their leaders from even just a single wild resource. But each of the guilds also has a special ability, and that's what we're talking about. Exception realms have a gold symbol, and they have their effect detailed on the realm's face just below the name of the realm. So there are realms that have a rare exception ability, and there are also races that have a rare exception ability that nobody else has. And the Wilder have this rare exception ability called Empath. Once per season, they can take one of their action points and place it on the Empath leader, and the Empath may declare an action on behalf of an adjacent monster realm. So the Wilder Guild can actually declare an attack from one of the monster realms. Or if there were an unoccupied realm nearby, they could say, monsters, why don't you just move into the unoccupied realm? And then the Wilders could possess the realm that used to have the monsters on it. Or they could just make the monsters attack one of their enemies. And the guilds that are in the master version of the game, and the master version is called the Wild Trove. Yeah, that is a unique aspect to the game. The Arcanist, these guys are like wizards, and they have an ability called Channeler. They can add a legion or an attack die when they activate a Triad realm. So these guys will actually use the magic of the Triad realm to get either an additional legion in combat or an additional attack die. And they can do that once per season. The Commune has no unique ability, but they have all of the rural abilities in the game. They have Archer, Brigand, Destrier, Nurturer, Siege, and Trader. So their special ability is they have 6 of these rural abilities instead of just 5. The Dominus is a religious guild, and they have an ability called Inquestor. And the Inquestor may sacrifice 2 legions from their ancestral home to complete a quest pillage card. So even if they can't otherwise complete the quest, they can just send 2 of their order to their death. And that sacrifice allows them to complete that quest whether or not they can complete it normally. But that means as long as the Dominus has a card in their hand and some legions on their ancestral home, they're probably getting a victory point. And the last one is the Council. And the Council is a group of They're kind of like the medieval Illuminati sort of thing. They have an ability called Delegate, and they may meet a secret society in an enemy realm if it's adjacent to a friendly city. So these guys love cities, and a secret society is a pillage card where you normally have to possess that enemy realm. Well, you have to possess that realm in order to meet with the secret society. So let me show you one of those pillage cards. Let's see if we can find one of those pillage cards. Here's one for the Druids. The Druid Secret Society, you would normally have to possess a realm with the Druid symbol in order to meet with this secret society and get this victory point. However, if the council wants to meet with this secret society, they can meet with them if they're adjacent to a city, even if that other realm, that Druid realm, for this example, were possessed by an enemy. The Druids will just come into the city, meet with the council, and go, yeah, you seem like you could be some good friends to us. Also, we love trees. Do you love trees? Because that's going to be kind of important. Okay? And as far as exception realms, if we look down in the Wild Trove, and we find one of the exception realms here. Are we still in Fate's Portal? Okay, now we're in Wild Trove. Here's an example, Starin. This is an elite trader realm, and it says at the top what its unique ability is. No other realm has this ability, but adjacent routed resources are considered allies. So, if you possess Starin, you also can use the resources that are adjacent to it, even if enemies control those resources. Okay? So that's an elite trader symbol. Here's another one with a unique ability. It has a barracks, and anybody who possesses this realm will receive a legion during seasonal reinforcement. So possessing this realm at all gives you an additional reinforcement during each of the seasonal reinforcements. And it is also a siege city and an urban city. And I wonder if we have found an image for War Sword already. I hope we have, and then I can show you the image for that. Yep. This is the image that we chose from AI for War Sword. But the lore on this is that this realm is constantly contested. And it may not seem like a whole lot, but an additional legion every single reinforcement can really add up, because that entropy level is right around that number. So you can eliminate your entropy just by owning War Sword in some cases. But those are unique realms. And then there are also terrain types, which are two types of terrain. And these were inspired by Magic the Gathering, but this one, for example, the Volcanic Island, is considered at all times to be a mountain and an island. Only 6 legions can be on each realm. That's a good point, Kazawana. But only 6 legions can be on each realm at any time. Even if you tried to add one with the Herald ability, or if you were the or you were the Arcanist and you were attacking from a Triad realm, you can only have 6 legions at any time. So that's another limiter for it. The marching size of a group of legions in this game is 12,000. 12,000 units at a time, which is 6 legions in Legion Chaos realms. A realm can't support any more than that, or more than 12,000 can't march on a road in Legion Chaos realms. Just one of the limiters for the game. It also causes the game to be a lot more like... It causes the game to be a lot more like chess in some ways, making each move more important, making the use of your leaders for those additional dice advantages, things like that, ancestral terrain. So elves attacking in the forest or defending a forest, it makes those things much more important. If you reinforce a realm that already has, let's say for example, Anivor already had 6 legions, and then it received 3 reinforcements. Let's bring that to the front. If you received 3 reinforcements here, those reinforcements would have to go into an adjacent realm that you owned, or they would be lost. So there is an overflow during reinforcement where these 3 legions could then overflow into, let's say the elves or the Triton, sorry, because the Triton are owning the Elven fortress right now. These 3 reinforcements, if they would be received in the ancestral home, this is a bad example over here, because it's a bad example because the Triton would not receive reinforcements in the Elven home. So to make this right, we'll say there's 6 in here, they receive 3 reinforcements here, and they own this forest. Then in that case, the overflow would cause them to be able to reinforce to the shadow canopy. And these 3 reinforcements, because they can't be here with these 6, could go in here, and then that would create a total of 6 in this realm here. So they would move 1, they would overflow 1 realm over in that case. Yeah, that's what happens to those. But this realm that we were talking about here, at any time is considered to be a mountain and an island. So if you need it to be an island, or you're attacking into the volcanic island and you have the ancestral terrain for islands, or seas rather, then you would get the additional die in combat, because volcanic island is considered to be a sea. However, if you were attacking a race like the Trolls that has mountains as their ancestral terrain, volcanic island is also considered to be a mountain at the same time. Okay? And that's just one more way that that final expansion, or the current final expansion for the game, changes the game. And those are called synchronous lands. They are considered to be the 2 terrain types at the same time. And the example given in here is that the tropical island is considered to be a forest and a sea at the same time. And let's look at the image for Tropical Island that we picked. This one, it's so pretty. I want to go to there. Do you guys like islands? I sure do. I sure do. And then the Masters game is recommended for 7 or 8 players. Yes, I want to go to there. Now my mind is thinking, when can I go to an island again? Okay, another way that the Maui is your favorite island? Yeah, Maui's pretty nice. There are some options for the game. Like I said, just options that I recommend. And one is that if you're playing with master players that have played this game several times, and you'd like to play with 7 or 8 players, the Masters game says you can distribute any of the cards randomly, including each player's sovereign race. Because you will have all of the races available to you, you just shuffle those cards up. And then, deal them out. If you would like to play with less realms than the Masters game plays with on a regular basis. Now, the Masters game lays out a lot more cards. "61 realms." So another whole ring around here. 61 realms. Now, for example, Risk only has 42 territories. So the game of Risk is played with 42 different territories that you can control. And the veteran game in Legion is played with 37 realms, which is the equivalent of a territory. But the Masters game is played with 61. 61 realms, the equivalent of a territory. It must be hard being landlocked. It is pretty devastating what happened to people on Maui. Absolutely. Phil lives in a city that is surrounded on 3 sides by water, so it's almost an island. That's pretty cool. I like the water. You have all different kinds of water, though. You have the kind of water that there is on Maui. And then you have the kind of water which is where my daughter is in Seattle. And that's a much different sort of beach in Seattle, Tacoma. But I like the sound of the water, just in general. Swimming in the bay here is a little colder than Maui, I imagine. When I first went to the ocean, it was pretty amazing to me because I thought that all the oceans were warm. I was wrong. I was wrong. But I don't know why I thought the entire ocean would be warm. That sounds silly now in my head. But when I was a little kid, I was thinking that all of the... In Maine, it's cold too. I wanted to talk about one of the options that I gave for the game, and we've used this several times, but maybe you have only 4 players, swimming in the ocean or bay is good. I agree. So the ocean was cold, but I had a 3 mil suit, a 3 mil diving suit that I had on, and I went body surfing in the ocean in California, and it was cold, but the 3 mil suit, you get a little tiny layer of water under there, and I do this scuba diving also. If you're in the water and you're in a safe. I am such a big Wim Hof fan, especially when I played Long Dark. That's true. How many times did I jump in the water that day? You know what? I just wasn't going to give up on it. And that was truly a moment of insanity for me because I thought, you know what? I have fallen in the ice 3 times. Surely I won't fall in the ice a 4th time if I walk in the exact same place where I fell the first 3 times. Maybe you should learn from your mistakes, pal. Maybe I should. We'll talk about collective choice, which is an option for Legion Chaos Realms. Let's say you want to play with less realms than is recommended. So you have 4 players. I am a big dumb animal. Thank you for that redemption. If you would like to play, for example, with 37 realms, but you would like to play with all of the realms that you own, because you'd like to have gates and everything else in the game, all sorts of randomness, the players can draft the cards. Of course, you could deal them out randomly. You could just deal 37 of the realms and just play that way. If all players agree, then that's fine. But drafting the cards is a different way to go about this. And what you do is you give all of the cards that you hand all of the cards out, you deal them out to each player. And then from those realms, each player will choose a number of realms. They will choose one of them from the draft and then pass them to the next player. From the cards that they were passed, they will draft another card until you have enough to play the size map that you want to play for the game. So we won't go a whole lot over drafting, but this is a way that players can look at the symbols, resources, the leader symbols on the cards, the type of cards, the type of terrain that it has, and they can draft the cards that are advantageous to them. Now, what's happening while the other players are drafting the cards that are advantageous to them, you'll end up, hopefully, if players are choosing well, you'll end up with a map that is roughly equally advantageous to each player, no matter what ancestral race they choose. So if I were to choose elves, I might choose forests more often so that I could fight in more of the forests or have more forest triads show up on the map and that sort of thing. If you want to get advanced with this, you could start from Dominatus in the very center of the map and have the players play the cards that they drafted onto the map until the map is created. There's all sorts of different things that you can do with these components as far as that goes. And then the game goes into the glossary. And we've talked about, I think, about pretty much everything in the game at this point. We'll try and find a Saturday, and I'll put it on the schedule so you guys can check it out. When I'm not online, you should be able to go down to the tab for the schedule and see what I have planned. And I've really sort of wavered sometimes between wanting to do exactly what I said I was going to do and wanting to do what's going to make me happy. And I've tried to find a nice balance there for you guys because I want it to be enjoyable, our time together. And our time together is it's invigorating for me, and it's special for me. But there's also there's also the desire. There's some power that I don't know that I get from playing something that I enjoy. And I've enjoyed showing you guys this game. I don't I haven't had the chance up to this point, really. Other than at conventions, I've shown this game a bunch of times, but I haven't really had the chance to just share it with the general public. And now that it's going to be on VOD, and then 24 hours later, it's going to be on YouTube. It feels amazing, and even if only 5 people, 10 people watch it, think about it. Think about that this will be kickstarted in 2025, and we have the opportunity to get 100 of these games out to people who will enjoy them. If it's not your type of game, that's great. Maybe it's just interesting. You talking to a guy who has designed non-electronic or tabletop card games and board games before, sold them. I've sold 30,000 copies of my games. I feel accomplished in this realm. After being in the industry for 20 years, I know a lot of the ins and outs of it. There are some dark closets, where the bad people hide. But for the most part, it was a very positive experience. I met a lot of people who are still, I still feel close to them to this day, even though we're not close as far as the cities that we live in. I feel like I could pick up with them and have a good time just hanging out with them, to this very day. But to think that some people may watch this and think, I'm going to watch for that Kickstarter in 2025. I'm going to watch the channel. I'm going to see if I'm interested in that in some way. That's exciting for me. I don't know if we're going to, be successful, but just to have the chance to have 100 copies of this game out in the world for people to see. It's been, like I said, 20 years making this game. It's a dream. I want to see it happen. As long as we're close to the end here, I wanted to read the credits to you. Every single one of my games has a like a credits section at the end, and maybe some of these people will hear their name on the stream or on View on Demand or on YouTube. But the credits say, special thanks to our families for supplying our routes to lands far away, be they fantastic or perilous. Thanks to John Ronald Reuel Tolkien for authoring the classic high fantasy works that inspired a modern mythical renaissance. Thanks to Isaac Newton for development of the color wheel, and Albert Munsell for suggesting it somewhat more resembled a tree. That's one colorful tree. Thanks to those that tested the game, especially Jim Flanagan, Mike Priola, Ryan Keyes, Ray Wilbur, Terry Wilbur, John Withers, Corey Withers, Ted Dykstra, and Kevin Pohl. Some of you even loved Legion when it was a disobedient infant. And it's that love that helped it grow into a, disobedient young adult. Oh, how far we've come. Names, characters, places, and incidents found in this work either are products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons, living or dead, so probably intended as an inside joke, obscure reference, or was chosen in a manner that, somewhat curiously, can't be determined after the fact even by the writer. That's true. Sometimes it goes like that, especially when it took the better part of 2 decades to create a world of so many possibilities. How anyone could do it in 7 days is puzzling, to say the least. Every effort was made to ensure all illustrations, and every effort will be made in the Kickstarter version to ensure that all illustrations used are royalty-free and/or for unlimited non-commercial use. Legion Chaos Realms, Legion Fates Portal, Legion Wild Trove, and Legion Founders Horde were produced in limited quantity for friends and family as an artistic endeavor and were not sold for profit. And up to this point, illustrations that you have seen by Monty Michael Moore were used with his permission. And may all your actions result in victory. Yes. Yes, yes. Well, now I'd like to find somebody to raid out to. And I think we'll do that right now. And who do we have? My, oh my. Okay, well. Well, here's somebody from my area. She's playing Red Dead Redemption. I think. Looks like she's on an ad break right now, but let's get this pulled up and where's my, I don't have my Twitch, but I can pull this down here, I think. Let you guys see it. Just bopping along on the horse. That's nice. I don't see that Wick is on right now. I think he's at work. And I have tried to raid in such a way that you know, you guys might enjoy some of the other content, meet a new friend, find a new streamer that you would like. There have been some streamers that I have followed and then I have unfollowed later because they're just not the type of content that I want to endorse, I guess. But I want to do that for you guys so that you feel like my choices are meaningful to me in some way. Now, Tassara 22 is actually from my area, in my same city, I believe. But I found her through a raid that I followed, and then read her bio and found out that she's in the same area of the country as I am, and I like her content. Now, normally I like to see a streamer with a webcam. But I think especially in the case of female streamers, it should be their right to use a cartoon or a character instead, or even just have the game completely displayed and not have their own face on there. I want them to be able to have that for their own safety and enjoyment and all of that sort of thing. But I'm going to raid you over to Tassara 22. And I hope that you'll go with me. Just to check it out and see if you might find her content interesting. Playing Red Dead Redemption, riding around on the horse, and I've played Red Dead Redemption. I really enjoyed it. There were some quests or moments in the game where you have to hit things exactly right, otherwise they make you start all over again. That's not enjoyable for me. But the adventure of it, riding around on the horses, and the immersion of the Western world, I found very, very exciting. So we got just a 3-hour stream for you today. That's what I had planned on the schedule, and I think I'm gonna take some other time for myself, and of course get ready for the 24-hour stream on Sunday. Don't forget, we've got Baldur's Gate 3 coming up tonight, and that might be the end, guys. Act 3, the end of Act 3 of Baldur's Gate 3, and then we will start in on our evil campaign, our selfish campaign, and make some new characters so that you can watch the Wolfpack play with even more abandon. That's crazy. But until next time, whatever you find to do, do it with all your might. And give somebody some love, and I'll see you next time on Quest